My goodness, wouldn't you love to have her on your board? Doesn't she sound wonderful and amazing? My goodness. So what are some of the lessons to take away from India? So we heard joy. How many times did she talk about it? It was fun, it was joyful, right? Are we making giving joyful and fun for our donors? She said that giving is part of your natural instinct. And she talked about change, that she wanted to see change, that she wanted to change others, but also that she needed to start with herself. She liked impact. We heard that word impact a couple of times. And how you have to, in order to have change, it has to start with you, that you can't change others until you change yourself. I thought those were some good messages. If you saw some other messages down there, make a note if there's something that I missed. But those were the big messages that I heard. Now, I saw this article maybe a few years ago in the Harvard Business Review, and it said that women, if we were an economy, right, that we would be bigger than China's and India's GDP. So women really do have a lot of money, and we do have a lot of power. On the other hand, when I look at who's sitting on the Fortune 500 boards, 16% of women. You know, we're such a mixed bag. Our story is so mixed between what we have in terms of increased power, increased influence, and what we don't have, our vulnerability and where we're not. So what do you think? Do you think that generosity and giving and having an impact on philanthropy and on your NGOs, do you think wealth is needed in order for you to have, for somebody to have an impact? What do you think? If you think yes, wealth, say, clap so I can hear you. Yes, you think wealth is important. Couple of folks think, yeah. And how about positions of power, positions of influence? Do you think that that's important? So more of you think that influence and power. So let's keep going and see if anybody's mind is changed as we move forward. So our next wonderful guest is Dame Stephanie Shirley. She had started her own IT business known as Zanza and now is part of Styria, and she became quite wealthy. That wealth, she says, allowed her to devote her retirement to causes, to doing good works out there in the world. And she decided to put her energy into autism because she had a child who suffered from autism. And she started her own foundation, and she is ambassador for philanthropy, named as ambassador for philanthropy by the British government. So let's meet Dame Shirley from the UK. And our first question to her was, how did your philanthropy begin?
It wasn't that there was a family tradition, but I came to England as an unaccompanied child refugee and was fostered by a lovely childless couple in the Midlands of England who basically brought me up as they would their own. And to give a child refugee a home like that is an enormous gift. And I feel it's almost necessary for me to give back time and skills and money.
So next we asked her, what drives your philanthropy?
Well, some people are driven by faith. Some people think of giving as a duty, not just a pleasure. To me, it is a pleasure. It's now what I do. I have a wonderful quality of life simply because I'm active, involved with bright people on a worldwide basis. And I don't really feel I've got any choice. That's now what I am. I've been very lucky in making serious money, and I'm now enjoying giving it away.
And how do your motivation and values play out in your philanthropic decision-making?
Well, charities are not businesses, but they do have to be business-like. And I really try to be extremely business-like, mission-led in my giving. Because once you start responding to every request that comes in through the door, you're not really going to be able to make any difference, and you're not going to get a great deal of pleasure from it yourself. So I concentrate, I focus. The one thing I learned in business, you know, if you don't focus, you don't get anywhere. And when I started, I'd be dashing off in all directions. But gradually learned if you focus, you can make things happen. And that's what I do in my philanthropy, focus.
And next we ask, what do you expect from the organizations you support?
Well, in talking to fundraisers at this congress, it's worth really pointing out what philanthropists do want from the organizations that we support. We want to be viewed as a stakeholder. We want not just to be a check writer, we want to become part of the family, be kept up to date with developments, an honoured guest perhaps. But the main thing is, straight away, we want to be thanked. And you'd be amazed how frequently you never receive even a simple email or written thank you for your support. And so that's a reminder all the time that it is an exchange with a charity, that we can provide time, skills, money, but they must also provide some sort of response to make it worthwhile.
And what have been the most rewarding gifts that you've given?
I try to be businesslike, but of course I'm an individual person, and some of the most rewarding gifts, especially when I've been in at the beginning of things, you can actually make a real difference and get a charity going. But in general, I think it's when we see some outcome of our activities, people thinking differently, people working in partnership, people taking ideas and rolling them forward. Because philanthropy is not about big money. You can be philanthropic with $50. You can be philanthropic with $5. It is a question of how we think about our gift rather than throwing it in a tin.
Wow, another great interview. Did you hear her talk about wanting to be part of family? Yeah, let's give her a nice round of applause. She can feel your love. She can feel it out there. So let's look at what some of the lessons were, at least the things that I heard. She talked about being focused and strategic. That has an impact on us, right? Because more and more donors are being focused. They're narrowing their list. They're shortening their list. So we want to make sure that we are high up on our donors list. She talked about partnerships and being in partnership. So that's so sad, right? That she said you'd be surprised how many NGOs don't send out a thank you. Oh, that's such a sad thing. I know everybody in this room thanked somebody within 24 to 72 hours. Every gift, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah, okay. And she once again talked about the joy of giving, the pleasure of giving, which is such a powerful thing. And she said, I want to be a stakeholder, not just a check writer. Are we letting our donors be stakeholders, or are we nervous about that? Nervous about letting them get too close? Nervous that they're going to take us off mission, or they're going to try to corrupt us in some way, rather than letting them come in and trusting and being a partner and being a stakeholder, because that's what our donors, especially our large donors, are really looking for. And she is clearly somebody who understands generosity. Remember, she said it doesn't matter what size gift. You can be a philanthropist with any size gift. When you look at the data from the UK, women do drive philanthropy in the UK, right? They are most of the decision makers. And in fact, the same study in the UK reported that most UK women who are donors want to be deeply involved. And did you hear how many times she used the word impact and make a difference, right? So impact and engagement are important concepts here. And that means that we have to have interesting and great ways to engage our donors, to get them involved with us. And if all we're doing is asking them to give money, give us names, give money, give us names, we're not really engaging them in productive and meaningful ways. So our next donor is from the US. And Dr. Delaney founded Synergos, and it is a grassroots organization that she was trying to combine grassroots leaders with political and business leaders. And she started this institute to help find sustainable ways to fight and end poverty. She's had a very storied career, public high school, consulted with the United Nations and the Ford Foundation, serves at the National Endowment for the Arts. So let's see what Peggy Dulaney has to say. So our first question was, when did you become a philanthropist?
Maybe I could just say a word about what the word philanthropy means to me, because whereas as a child I think I saw it in a very traditional manner, giving money to something, I now prefer to think of it as its original meaning, which is love of humanity, and I would add to that love of the planet. And so obviously there was a developmental phases in which I became more aware of the larger issues of trying to do what we now call strategic philanthropy. But I'm the fourth generation in my family that's been involved in giving away money. So I'd say probably by the age of 6, I was getting a little allowance and 10% was supposed to go to something. So it's been a pretty long trajectory.
And next we asked her, what are you looking for in the investments you make?
I think mainly I look for a fundamentally sound organization with values that I share. And if I'm convinced that they're sound and they're working in a direction that I believe in and that they're doing good things, then I'm willing to contribute, mostly with general support, because having run an organization that's a nonprofit, I know that that's the hardest kind of money to raise. So, and then the other thing I also look for is that they will have a multiplier effect.
Multiplier effect. What learnings have you gained from the organizations you support? Now, there's a great question.
And Southern Africa, where we've worked probably until recently most extensively, the processes that people in communities use to come to agreement, it may be very lengthy, but it's very complete. And in Synergos's work to help build inclusive and participatory partnerships around the world, it's so evident watching those community processes how important it is that people feel included and that everybody gets to have a say. And you end up saving time at the back end if you invest at the front end by making sure that people do have a say. And then I guess the other piece that's been important to me is the importance of trust building, especially when you're dealing with people from different sectors. So people have these preconceptions about each other or mistrust. And so giving people an opportunity to get to know each other as individuals has been really important to the ultimate outcomes.
What does success look like for you in terms of your giving?
Well, probably the biggest factor, again, is that whatever it is I'm investing in continues to have a life of its own. It's not just that I'm giving to something that then does a particular thing and then it ends, but something that has an impact, and because of the processes that were used as a result of the investment, that it actually grows and multiplies. So, I mean, just an example that's still growing and multiplying in India, we've invested in a program to bring people together around issues of child nutrition, which is 42% of children in India are malnourished. It may have gone down to 40 by now, but it's horrifyingly large. And it really did take bringing people from all sectors together initially in one state. And now the federal government has been asking for good ideas that have succeeded, and they've chosen, I think, 3 of ours among 7 that they've selected to go national. That kind of thing is pretty exciting when it happens.